Hello, welcome to the Route to Success. Today, we're here with Kadie Black, President and CEO of Voices for Children Foundation, also known as Via Voice in Miami, Florida. Kadie leads with heart and purpose, helping children in foster care see that life can happen for them, not to them. And I will stress, it's very important. It's those prepositions, the for, not to. So we'll get more into that conversation. Through travel, experiential, difficult word, learning, and compassionate advocacy, her team brings hope and resilience to kids who have faced unimaginable challenges. In this episode, Kadie shares how her personal journey and family legacy shaped her passion, the science behind fostering hope, and how voices transform trauma to opportunity for hundreds of youth each year. Kadie, welcome to the show. I'm so sorry I tripped on so many words there. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's jump in because I know when you and I talked before, there is so much to talk about with your work, and I'm interested to hear everything. Just for reference, I volunteer in a similar capacity in Oklahoma, so there's a lot of crossover and learning for me here. So, Kadie, you've said your work allows children to dream beyond their circumstances. Can you share what that means in practice for the youth you serve?
Absolutely. So, a lot of times, and most of the time, kids who come into foster care are removed because of abuse, abandonment, or neglect. And they're removed from the only home they know, and they're placed in a group home or a foster home. If they have family that can take them, we call that kinship, so non-relative and relative caregivers. But they're in survival mode, right? And things are, that idea of things happening to them, right? They don't have a lot of control over where they go, what's happening. They're really, in that fight or flight zone. So being able to help kids get out of that kind of survival mode into a safe space, even just for a couple of days, you actually see their nervous system shift. And so that's a lot of what we do, is try to take our kids and help to give them hope and help to allow them to dream beyond their circumstances by taking them on epic memory-making opportunities. So this weekend, I'm actually on my way to a dude ranch with kids. So I'll spend the weekend at a dude ranch. We do mission trips to the Dominican Republic to help build water systems. We take kids to Disney. We do a therapeutic wilderness program. We do a college tour. So we really try to help kids get out of what's going on just at home, hang out in a really fun environment that is very little stress, with people that they've built these relationships with that are consistently showing up for them, and then help to push them to be like, you can do this. You can go to college. You can be anything you want in life. You just have to kind of get through this period of time. And we've had a lot of really great success in that trajectory changing, mindset shifting practice through these trips. And it's so wonderful to watch these kids really go from surviving to thriving through some of that, just, hands-on learning.
Right. To see kids be kids.
True. Yes. Just to play. Play. Yeah.
People, I always stress, and I said this a lot when my daughter was in high school, people forget how much all kids of every age need to play. And that play looks, I know, I need to play. You need to play. We all need to play. It looks different at every stage. And I love that you get to see that and give that.
Yeah. Amazing.
Okay, Voices for Children has been a cornerstone in Miami-Dade's Guardian Ad Litem program for decades. How does your organization continue to bring hope to children navigating the foster care system? And I know this wasn't a pre-question, but maybe just explain a little bit about the Guardian Ad Litem program and your partnership with them to give, kind of set the question.
Yes, absolutely. So the Guardian Litem program is a statewide, state-run program that recruits and trains volunteers and has staff that serve as the best interest advocate for kids. Voices for Children has partnered with the Guardian Litem programs for 40 years since our inception to help make sure that the guardians, when they go out to the home and they're doing that visit and realizing that child needs after school program or that child needs shoes or clothing, that they're able to ask and have somewhere to go to make those asks. So the Guardian Ad Litems are anybody who wants to help and help a child navigate through the foster care system, I just finished my training. I've been a guardian before, but decided that I wanted to do it again. And it's a 30-hour training. They actually now have a condensed option. And then you are assigned to a child and you're their advocate. So we really need people to step up and lead in that way. And there's this type of program nationally, so not just in Florida, but all over the country, people can lean in and serve in this way. Mm-hmm. The biggest piece that Voices plays for those guardian, like as a partner, is the stuff, right? So we do braces and all of the senior activities and the fees when they get into college, to helping kids sometimes with the down payment for cars. Really, it runs the gamut. If you think of all the things that people do for their own children, that is the fund, that is our Children's Needs Fund. So we have 5 areas of practice. One is that just basic needs for kids. We have a comfort closet. When kids come into foster care, we're able to give them deodorant and shampoo and conditioner and all the things, right? And that also brings a lot of hope for them and comfort. Kids come in with garbage bags most of the time. And so being able to actually have the right things that they need, period products, for example, if you're a young girl and you're coming into foster care and you're placed in a home that you don't know, and all of a sudden you need period products, it's challenging to navigate. So we do all that stuff. We also help to expedite permanency for kids in care, helping them find adoptions or reunification, or a slew of things that we do to try to help expedite permanency under our advocacy umbrella. So we do that. We also help support kids who age out of foster care. So at 18, you turn 18 and you have to transition out of traditional foster care and into extended foster care or some sort of other independent living. So Voices helps to navigate that. We also have 11 youth who we really have overlays in their apartments. They're living independently on their own, and we have a lot of overlays, making sure that they have a success plan for their education, for their vocation, personally budgeting, things like that. So that's our independent living work. We also help relatives or non-relatives. So that's another important aspect of Voices, making sure that, I'll just give you an example. Kids come into foster care and they are placed in a group home. And that group home in Florida, or Miami, I should say, averages about $400 per child per day. And it's really sometimes our worst outcomes, not because of the places themselves, but just the structure of, little bit of consistent structure, because it's shift care and there's peer behavior and kids get there and the other kids aren't going to school. Why do I have to go to school? Right. Some of that. And then our outcomes for when they do age out are pretty dismal. So we really work with the relatives and non-relatives to do bunk beds, or if they need to move because they have 3 kids, and we'll help them with some of that first, last, and security. So really trying to help relatives take those, or non-relatives, the coach, the teacher, be the caregiver while that child is going through the foster care system. They're still in foster care. Parents are still have a case plan. They just get to live with a relative and somebody that's known to them as opposed to a stranger. And so those placements, those relatives and non-relatives, they get 0 on day 1, comparative to, to $400 per child per day, right? I know. So and oftentimes all it takes is a bunk bed. And so drop ship bunk beds, we'll do all of those things. So that is an area that we see a lot of success in. It's also an area that we advocate to change laws around so that we can try to have those placements prioritized over some of these other more costly placements with poor outcomes. So Voices is doing a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. But a lot of those areas that I mentioned are gaps, right? So that's really what Voices is. We stand in the gaps and we become that safety net in those gaps for those different areas. And we are nimble enough to be able to step in on a case very quickly, help, stabilize that case with a lot of urgency, and then see really great outcomes when, the when our data comes out. So it's great.
I would like to stress. So let me make a clarifying statement. So I have worked a lot with at-risk youth in the state of Oklahoma, in the care of the foster care system, with CASA, with Litem Services, and with Office of Juvenile Affairs. And let me say, seen the gamut, run the gamut. I could tell you stories, Kadie, from my career that would absolutely break your heart and make you cry. So what I would like to stress here, when people are hearing this, you said you fill those gaps. As a parent and as somebody who has seen the system in Oklahoma fail numerous times, those gaps are crucial. Those gaps are critical. Those are the gaps that quite literally can make the difference in a child believing in themselves, believing people care, believing the world is a good place, instilling that little bit of hope that will help build resiliency versus everything is falling apart. This is terrible. And so you very much do fill the gaps, but those gaps are huge. And I would say, and this is me taking a lot of liberty here, they're bridges back to humanity.
I mean, we say all the time that we literally change trajectories because without the interventions that Voices provides early on and in our, advocacy and in our experiential learning, we change the trajectory for that case. They could aging out of foster care, but we were able to really help that teacher take those kids and be able to stabilize within the first 3 months. And now they're adopted, because they found that permanency. But she would never have been able to manage that. We had an aunt. This is one of my favorite cases. We had an aunt. She took in 6 kids overnight that was her brother's children. And she had 3 of her own. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And they lived in a 3-bedroom. And I remember looking at the case, and because I read all the cases that come in to try to see where I really feel like we can help and lean in for those things. So I called her. I said, I'm coming down and I'm going to just put in diapers. And I just loaded up my car with everything that I could find in our office that I felt like would help her, including then we drop shipped her bunk beds and all clothing cards and gave her food cards, all the things. So I drove down to Homestead and delivered all this stuff to her. I said, God bless you, for doing this. And a week later, she called me and she says, I lost my job because she had to put the kids in this school and that school and move them around and do this assessment and get them into therapy and the whole 9 yards. Okay. So we helped pay her rent for 2 months. And then 9 months later, she called me and she said, we're being evicted because there's too many people in the house. So,
oh my God.
So we helped her with her we helped her with the last insecurity and she did the first, right?
Right. And
we moved her, and those kids never went into traditional foster homes or group homes. There were 6 of them, Oh
my gosh.
I wanted to meet them. I wanted to meet the kids. And so I went down and I took them out to dinner because I figured, when is she ever going to be able to take these kids to a meal and sit and, they ordered dessert for appetizers. I didn't care,
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do. But this young kid next to me said that he did track and he really liked track. And then the other one next to me on this side was a dancer. And I just kept thinking to myself, if they had just had to go and live in group homes, because the older ones, that's where they would have ended up. The younger kids would have ended up in foster homes. They would never have been able to really get together or see each other. This kid would not have been able to finish track. This one would not be in dance, right? We would have disrupted everything. And then that's when the kids become really angry and they end up having delinquency issues because they're, acting, I say kids are not difficult. They're just going through a difficult thing. And that's a lot of what happens. But then they get labeled, right? And then nobody wants to deal with them because their behaviors are so bad. So it's this cycle that happens. And so I was really proud of this family because we changed trajectories for these kids. We literally changed trajectories. And for less than $10,000 in the end of the day, right, we saved the system $12,000 a month per child, right? And there were 3 teenagers and So again, it's that little bit of investment that we can make in these families, the little bit of stabilization. Somebody said to me over the weekend, like, why don't you expand? Your outcomes are so great. And I said, yes, we could, but then how do you duplicate the heart and the, urgency and that's the hard part, right? Is because we do, everybody in this office works with passion and purpose. We hire for passion and purpose.
Yeah.
Teach skills, some skills, for the most part, but we really want people who understand that the urgency, often what happens in these systems is there's no urgency until there's an emergency. But in our office, we really believe that we have urgency, so there is not an emergency, right? And it's just that little bit of effort that we try to put in the front of the case. So, we're seeing really great outcomes because of that. We have pieces of legislation we're trying to work on with the state to help draw down dollars to relatives and non-relatives earlier on in the process. So I'm hopeful that we can see that shift. But yes, it's really that. It's literally changing the outcomes for these children. And just so you know, and I think it's good for the viewers to know, 60% of human trafficked victims had some interaction with foster care. Okay? Wow. I know. Homeless populations. Our kids end up homeless at least once by age 26, like 70% of them, right? At least once. And that similar thing with criminal behavior. They end up being arrested at least once. So really, our kids struggle. And oftentimes it's because, again, they're in survival mode. So they do things that they wouldn't necessarily do if they weren't in survival mode. And then they get arrested. And then it's like a whole, cycle that happens. So we really want to help so that kids do not age out. Our goal is so kids don't age out of foster care and don't end up in group homes. That's our big thing.
Yeah. I would say what's key to your success and your outcomes is the fact that you're giving the relatives a place to call and ask questions, a place to ask for help. Because I think at my very first job working with, I worked in a children's shelter. And the very first thing I learned was you don't know what you don't know. And it's really easy to criticize someone and say, well, you should have asked for help or you should have asked for this. But when you don't know who to call, you're looking at 6 new mouths to feed, hearts to love, right? All of that. It's making that one phone call is too much. But when oh, hey, she came and saw me, I can call her.
Right. Yeah. And there's so many new people that are in, it's the case manager's calling and the garden ad litem's calling, and it's very overwhelming for our family. So we have a kinship care navigator who's there to help them look at all the possible things that they might qualify for, helping to fill out a food stamp application, for example. It's very complicated to do. But again, it's so critical to make sure that, those kids then don't end up going into a foster home. So. Right.
So I think it's adults and youth that you service. I would say you service the whole gamut. It's wonderful to see. Okay, so I think let's just see if we touched on this, but let's make sure that we answer this fully. I don't want to miss this one because this is one we really stress, where you help kids shift from life is happening to me to life is happening for me. How do you cultivate that mindset, and what tools or approaches work best? And I think too, maybe if you could drop from your experience, 1 or 2 tips that any parent could use, because I will say, we all struggle with big emotions. And I remember looking at my daughter and she'd be so mad sometimes. And I would just look at her and I'd say, it's okay. Everybody has big emotions and it's okay if you can't name them. Let's move a little bit. Let's talk. Let's figure it out. But sometimes it's so scary when you're like, I can't name an emotion. So what tips and everything? I'm going to stop talking. Yes.
No, I think you're 100% correct in that, when our kids are having a lot of different emotions that are happening at the same time, like I said, right? They are completely in survival mode. And so they can't, so even the smallest thing might set them off or might be a trigger or all of those things. So we are trauma informed in terms of, and sometimes even us, right, get very frustrated, and we have to remember that it's not the child's not doing it to us, right? Or trying to be very disrespectful to us, even though we feel that way. So really making sure that we're not taking things personal. We really try to practice the 4 agreements as well in our office. So, really being impeccable with our word. If we're going to say something to the youth that we're going to do something, we're going to follow through, right? We're not just going to say we're going to do this and then we forget. Or so being very intentional with our word, not taking things personal, always doing our best. So the 4 agreements. But what I have found are 2 things that really work well. Getting kids out of their homes and into the woods or into remote places that are totally outside their comfort zone.
Okay.
And so we've done now for the past 4 years, we take kids on a therapeutic wilderness program where they sleep on the floor and they learn to make, bojo fires. And it really just takes them completely out of their environment and into a place that they really do feel safe with those people, the same people that are with them every day, building those relationships. So we send our middle school kids on that trip. And what we really see when they come back is that confidence that they've never, Miss, I made a fire, or I did this and I did that. And so it starts to be that they have things that they do and they're building that confidence and they're very good. They come back like, oh, I want to go back. And they do. They want to go back second years. There's a tier system of how to work up this ladder. And they really want to figure out how they can stretch themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But the big shift happens when we take them on our mission trip. Because on our mission trip, they go to no flushable toilets, no running water, a tiny village, hot, bugs, right? Mm-hmm. Poverty like they have never seen before, but happy humans who are so happy to have us there, have us building them bathrooms, we do the bathrooms for sanitation, and oftentimes everybody in that home is using the outhouse, right? They're using the same outhouse. So the kids start to realize like, wow, right? I might have it not great, right? But they have it perspective, right? This is much worse. And I now have something to give. I have my time and I can help. And so that's when we start to really see that life is happening to them, to life is happening for them. And they come home wanting to serve, not being always the ones who are served, because that is what kids often are, the ones who are being given to, but that they actually have more that they can do. And that is when we see the shift. So between our therapeutic wilderness program to kind of get them out of their comfort zones and then taking them to this tiny remote villages where they learn to serve, that's where we really see our magic start to happen for our kids and that mindset shift happen.
I will share. I don't think I've shared this on the podcast before. When I was 13, my dad, who is from Mexico, decided to move us back to Mexico. So from 13 to 15, I lived in Mexico City in the 90s when it was the largest city, the dirtiest city, and it was not the Mexico City it is today. And I was dropped in a country where I didn't speak the language. The poverty, like you said, was incredible. Areas with no running water. At the time, there was an overall water shortage. And so the government would just randomly shut your water off for a week at a time. And so going from living in New Jersey, flip the water on anytime you want it, to another country, seeing all of that for 2 years and navigating all of that changed me so profoundly that when you were talking, I could feel those memories resurfacing and the understanding and how you do want to serve. And it's so true. It makes such a difference when you experience that kind of life and that shift.
Yeah. And our kids want to go back, often over and over, and they do. They become the senior leaders on the trips. And I have one kid who's gone 4 times on mission trips, and I really do believe it. Like, he found what lit him up and giving and being of service to other people. And not to say that it's not very triggering for them oftentimes to go on these trips where they see not a lot of food, and it's reminiscent of what sometimes the conditions they might have grown up in, right? And here they are now trying to give back. It's beautiful. We're going to go again in March. This will be our fourth trip, and looking forward to it.
I'll be sending you guys positive energy.
Thank you.
And this is perfect transition to, oh gosh, this is such a hard word for me, excuse me, experiential learning and travel are big parts of your programming. Why do these experiences matter so much in helping youth build resilience and hope?
Yeah. So there's something called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and our kids have had a ton of them. And one of the ways to combat adverse childhood experiences are positive childhood experiences. And so that's a lot of what we do. And we don't go to Disney for just one day. We will go for 3 nights and really give them the full experience and treat them as if, you know, they're VIPs, right. And let them, you know, get snacks, and we don't go overboard because it's funny, but we really allow the kids to have an experience as if they were in a family where other people go. So, you know, that's just an example. And I think a lot of it is core memory making, but then, you know, a lot has impact. So obviously our college tours are meant to help kids see themselves and be able to go to college and feel like it's accessible for them. But on a college tour, we might take them to Busch Gardens too, you know? And so again, it's building the relationship building and the conversations that we're able to have with kids when you're in line, for example, at a ride, or you're just walking, you know, on a college campus and talking to them about what their future might hold, or you're sitting under the stars in the DR and you're, you know, you have no electricity and so you have to talk to each other, right? Yeah. Those are the moments that we really can start to understand what these kids need, and they start to open up. So I'll give you one example. We had a youth who came on one of our Dominican Republic trips. We partner with Blue Missions. I joke I'm crazy enough to take kids out of this country, but I'm not crazy enough to actually plan the trip myself. So we use Blue Missions. They are a wonderful organization that helps teenagers and adults get down to the Dominican Republic to have impact and all through water. So we had this youth, and, you know, just talking to her, and she at some point said, well, my mom has done everything she needs to do to get us back except for housing. And so I came home and I started to investigate, and it was true. So here she was, her and her brother, both in group homes. Her other sibling was in a foster home. So again, do the math of how much we as taxpayers were paying for them to be in this, 2 kids in this group home and then 1 kid in a foster home. And for $5,000, we were able to help not only move her, but help her with furniture and beds and other things, and get 3 kids completely out of foster care. And she actually just came back and spoke at our gala this past.
Oh my gosh!
Because it again changed the trajectory for her and her family. And mom read, you know, who overcame everything she, you know, needed to work on, and still she's an addict, so she knows that it's a struggle that she does. Right. For her kids, right? She has definitely turned her life around and thus helped turn the kids' life around. But all she needed was a little bit of help. And had we not traveled together and spent so much time together and, you know, asking questions and talking, we might have never known, right? And so that's a lot of what we feel is so important, is to get to know our kids. So kids do apply for that specific program. Voices serves about 1,000 kids, a little over 1,000 kids every single year. But we have 50 kids that we do the travel with. And so we have kids in our middle school cohort, kids in our high school cohort, and our leadership cohort. And then we get to know them. So it's the same kids and, you know, the same adults, and there starts to be that real rapport.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. So something I've always wondered about, your organization supports youth aging out through apartments and individualized plans, which I know getting my first apartment was so overwhelming. It's horrible. I can't even imagine doing it with no support. What lessons have you learned about preparing young people for independence and self-sufficiency?
So you had said something, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I think that unfortunately, a lot of our kids really don't know what it's like to have to be independent because we don't give them that opportunity for independence, right? In foster care, there's a lot of rules, and so we might not be able to Uber them, for example, when they're under 18, or help, or just allow them to take the buses places, right? So there's not a lot of opportunity for them to have that hands-on learning, and maybe they have a great foster parent who's helping to show them cooking and things like that, but they're not having to really learn budgeting or even sometimes getting their driver's license. They're not making any of their own doctor's appointments. They're being told where to go and what to do and when to do it and things like that. So the hardest thing we see is that kids want to get out of foster care as quickly as possible because they don't want to be told what to do anymore. And so they fall a lot because they're like, oh, I'm going to be adult. It's going to be easy. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I don't need you. And so pretty much what we find is we have to let kids fail on their own, even though we try. And, and we've seen better outcomes with those kids that we work with because they are much more open to our advice and our support because they know, again, we've been consistently there for them. But the case manager ends at 18, they get a new case manager, right? There's not a lot of consistency for kids. And so then they're like, I don't want this new person. And so they fall. So around 19 is when they come back and start to realize that they really need help. But in that, they maybe have gotten arrested in that year or used all of their life savings, which is how do you save, right? If you're not,
right.
Things like that, I think is what we see the most. So we have peer mentors, kids that have gone through the process of aging out, and we try to get them with our younger kids that are in the process to be like, yo, I thought this was going to be easy, and it is not, easy. And here are some of the things, and you really should be taking advantage of this and pushing them to hear it from another peer. And so that's something we're hopeful we can shift some of those outcomes for just those kids to help them understand that there are people who have done this before and the grass is not greener on the other side of 18.
No, it is not. Stay under 18 as long as you can.
Exactly.
Hope theory suggests that goals, pathways, and agency are key ingredients in building resilience. How do you see those elements at work in your programs or your own leadership journey?
Yeah, so I definitely one that needs those goals. We are in a 5-year strategic plan and very excited that we're on par 3 years in on all of our marks. And so having that roadmap is, really, I think, important to be able to strive. And we've expanded programs. We see something's going well, and then we work to expand it. So I think really being able to, or something that's not working, and then we need to release it, right? And so being able to have that reflection of what's working well, where do we want to expand it, and keeping that quality over quantity. That is huge for us, very huge for us. One of the things that we make sure for everybody at the organization is they have to go on at least one of our experiential learning, even if they're in development, even if they're back-end HR, right? They have to go on at least one outing with the kids because we want them to really understand the front end and their impact and why the development is so important to that outcome is because we can fund the program. So we really try to make sure that we keep our mission, what we do. We keep our mission front and center of everything that we do because it's really important that we continue to for the kids. I keep a caseload. Everybody that is on our programs team has kids that we are kind of assigned to, that I'm the 3 a.m. call, or I'm the emergency contact number at school some of those times. And so all of our staff kind of have that to, again, stay very connected so we can also see what gaps we're seeing in the system to see if we can expand into those gaps or, help to do that. So I think that it's, very important for us. And that's as much as it is for the kids, right? If they have their goals, if they know where they're going, if they have, if we talk to them and they really like music and we can find those pathways forward, and it might not be with us, and that's okay, right? I think that sometimes we all have a kind of scarcity mindset, like, oh, this is my kid. No, this is everybody's kid. And let me tell you, if Guitars Over Guns in Miami is going to be able to serve them because that is what they need, we will partner with Guitars Over Guns to do those pieces that they maybe don't know how to do, and then we'll use them as that connectivity. So I think creating those individualized plans and goals for kids is critical, and then being able to find them those kind of pathways forward the same way as we do for our staff, I think is critical.
I like the way that you have a very systematic approach to it. I think it's going to sound odd, but those systematic approaches, even with your own children, of what are your goals for the year, it gives you a way not only to see progress and measure success, but it helps you focus as a parent. Here's what I need to work on. Okay, for listeners who want to make a difference, but don't know where to start, don't know, what to do, what's one small act they can take today to be a voice in their own community?
Yeah, so as mentioned, right there, Guardian Litem or CASA, those types of programs are huge. Big brothers, big sisters, right? Those are ways that people can really kind of connect and be part of the solution and be a voice for that child. When this is a court process that families go through. It's called the dependency court in Florida. Sure, it's others things in other states, but they are dependent wards of the state. So that's why it's called dependency. And there's a lawyer for the for the mom, and there's a lawyer for the dad, and there's a lawyer for the state, and there's a guardian ad litem attorney and a guardian. There are all these people, and sometimes there's not one person that's just there for the kid, and that's what the guardian ad litem program does, CASA does, or attorney ad litems, right? So they become that voice for that child and making sure that the child, and if they're attorneys, sometimes attorney ad litems are express wishes, and sometimes they are best interest. So it just depends. But those are critical roles people can play. Or they can find programs like Voices for Children and donate items, right? Shampoos, conditioners, deodorant, feminine products, diapers, formula, all of those things. Voices only takes new items. That is a big thing for us because we want to give our families the dignity that they deserve. And so we do not take used items. We'll take some gently used stuff sometimes, but for the most part, new. But we have lots of service groups who come, and then they'll bring all the stuff, and we'll make our comfort kits. We have a comfort closet, so they'll come and they'll sort, and they'll do, stock our shelves for us. We have people who volunteer throughout the year. They donate, uniforms and stuff like that. For Christmas, we have toy drives. So there's lots of ways people can get involved. So I think finding a local organization that kind of supports the dignity and normalcy and basic needs for kids in foster care is critical, because the state does provide money for the care and the foster homes and the case management. But the stuff that we give, oftentimes it sounds so basic, and it is, but it's othered. It's like the unnecessary. It's not. It's necessary for these kids. It just oftentimes isn't covered by the funds that are sent down for kids from the state.
And let me say, as a former nonprofit CEO and now volunteer, if you have a very hectic work life, if you have small children and this just isn't the right place for you to volunteer, don't ever hesitate to send cash. The nonprofits will never turn away cash, and I am not ashamed for asking for cash for anybody. So I want to be very clear. This is Sarah saying that, not Kadie. But if there's something that you can't do time-wise, never hesitate to send a check.
Yes, agreed. And again, that we can actually invest that. Your investment in us can invest it where it's needed most. And so definitely always need donors who are contributing funds to us and investing those funds so that we can ensure we can do our work.
Right. Yes. I always like to do that shout out because I don't have a problem doing it. So, Kadie, I want to thank.
I'll give you our website. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes, but our website is beavoice.org. We are Voices for Children, but we use Be a Voice as kind of our call to action. So there's lots of ways on our website at beavoice.org that you can look and get involved. You can also find us on Instagram at Voices for Children. So definitely engage. And then if you need help finding an organization within your area, we're also happy to help connect you as well. And you can, DM us and we'll try to help you connect to those organizations.
Thank you, Kadie. So as we say, as somebody who has seen kids permanently removed from homes, it's something I hope nobody ever has to see. The little things that you do for the kids, the hugs, the high fives, those meaningful conversations, the possible stick of candy. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but in that moment for that child, it's everything. Huge. It's everything.
Yeah. And even just saying I love you. I mean, I tell all of our kids I love you when we hang up and they tell me I love you. And, I'll have conversations and be like, you're the only one, miss, that I tell you that I say I love you to. And it's because I'm telling them I love them, right? They're not just walking around telling but we do believe that our kids do not get hugged in their group homes. They don't get hugged in every foster home. We're big into hugs. But it just comes down to that consistency. So yes, just even that note, sometimes people will take time to kids that are coming into foster care notes and put them in the comfort kits. It's just everything. Kids just want to feel seen and like somebody cares about them. So yeah.
Well, Kadie, thank you so much for being a guest today. Thank you for taking such valuable time to tell the story of this organization. I hope that in a small way, this episode can majorly impact your organization. And I just thank you so much.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful that you gave me this opportunity and this platform, and just urge everybody to go out and find what's, lights them up and what brings them joy, and follow that spark, even if it's just as a volunteer, so that you can really light up the world. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.